So can everyone hear me? This is Rashawn Wood with VSGI. Everybody can hear me?
This is Pat Collins from MEEC.
This is Rashawn Wood, VSGI.
Hi, Rashawn. Let me start now by saying good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for logging on this afternoon. On behalf of MEEC, we hope your day has gone well so far. I'm Pat Collins, your coordinator for MEEC. Members, would you please join me as we welcome Visual Systems Group Incorporated, and your presenter and host today is Rashawn Wood, Commercial Inside Sales Rep and Special MEEC Rep. Also presenting are Daniel Ferguson, Manoja Vimalaki, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Matt Dudak. Okay, we also have Tamara Petranco on the line, who is our Executive Director of MEEC, and I'm going to turn it over to Tamara first. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. These certainly are challenging times for everyone, and anytime we have a vendor who wants to share information with us, we're happy to share it all with you. Please note that on the MEEC website, meec-edu.org, there is a COVID-19 resource item where you can click, and any vendor who has shared information with us about things that are going on that will assist you during this dreadful time, it's on that. It's on the MEEC website. So please reach out to that website and see what's out there. As always, we post after doing a session. We post PowerPoint presentations, recordings, whatever the vendor gives to us, we post those under the event journal. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it on to Rashawn, and it's all yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Tamara and Pat. Sorry about that. So good afternoon, everyone, and this is Rashawn Wood. I am the MEEC specialist at VSGI. Thank you all so much for joining and for taking the time out of your busy schedule, teaching and administrating, to join us for the Distance Learning in a Time of Crisis VSGI and Poly joint hosted webinar. First, I would just like to say once again, thank you all for your continued educating of our children in Maryland, even through these unprecedented times. With everything happening so abruptly, many school systems are having to adapt to the reality of mass-scale distance learning implementation at an extremely fast rate. So with no exact end date and return date set, VSGI and Poly worked together to put this webinar together to inform all the MEEC members of the voice, video, and headset distance learning solutions available to make your distance learning experience easier and better. Today with Poly, we will discuss solutions that work natively with multiple conferencing platforms used across the state, including Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google, and many more. As I stated in the beginning, we will cover solutions that will assist you with distance learning, but as well be adaptable once you return to normal business functions. So just a few quick notes about us at VSGI. There are customers on here that have worked with us in the past. But for those customers that do not know us, we are a full service, start to finish audiovisual integrator. We've been in business for over 30 years, and we've worked with federal, state, local, healthcare, commercial, and education customers implementing audiovisual and video conferencing solutions. And just for your own awareness, VSGI is a vendor on both the hardware and services portions of the MEEC contract across all regions of the state. So just again, to give you guys a heads up on that. And when I say start to finish, VSGI, from the very beginning of any project, from the design phase to the implementation phase to the continued maintenance support phase, we're a total start to finish shop. So just to kind of give you guys a bit of background about us, and just to kind of jump right into it, we'll kind of kick things off with the webinar with just a quick few housekeeping notes. So just the kind of format of the webinar this afternoon, we're going to start with a 30-minute presentation. So that would be, like I said, joint hosted between Poly and VSGI. Mostly Poly will be handling and discussing the solutions that are available. And then after that 30-minute presentation, we'll do a 15 to 30-minute question and answer session at the conclusion of the presentation. And I say 15 to 30 minutes, just depending on the amount of questions and the length of the answers, but about 30 minutes at the end of the presentation. Just so you guys are aware, the presentation is being recorded. So if you have any questions, Please hold them until the end of the presentation, where you will be given the opportunity to ask presenters your questions. However, if you need to ask a question during the webinar, you can use the chat feature, which can be found at the last icon in the top left corner of the screen. Any questions posted in the chat during the webinar will be presented to be answered in the order they are received during the Q&A session. We are requesting that no one attempts to discuss or answer these questions to eliminate any possible confusion. And please note, just to kind of assist here, if there is any need to make a presentation larger on your screen, if there's some person talking or there's something being presented and it's smaller, you can just double click on that presenter's box and that will enlarge it for you. Any questions, comments, meeting requests after this is all said and done can be addressed to our meek@vsgi.com alias. So just to kind of continue on here, go ahead and get us introduced to the team that will be presenting. So starting with myself and the VSGI team, myself and Manoja. I'm Rashawn Wood, once again, the VSGI MEEC specialist. I am your direct point of contact for any new projects, questions, anything that you guys have questions about following this webinar. You can reach out to me directly. My phone number is listed on there, and as well my direct email address, and as well as you see the meek@vsgi.com alias. Feel free to contact us there. There's a team of reps ready to support. If I'm unavailable, Manoja will get it, or somebody on the MEEC@VSGI team will get that. So we can definitely assist. And as well, Manoja Wimokantha, she is the VSGI sales manager. She works with me supporting the MEEC customers. You can contact her directly. I left her her phone number on there, and as well as her direct email address. But as well, feel free to send it directly to that MEEC@VSGI alias, and we can definitely help you guys out there. So before I turn it over to our friends at Poly to allow them to introduce themselves, just want to first off thank Poly for graciously and immediately assisting VSGI in putting this webinar together. But I just wanted to make a note about the name Poly. Many of you are probably aware, but for those who are not, Polycom and Plantronics recently merged into one large company, taking the name Poly, a fitting name for an organization with many voice and headset video solution options. Please note that Polycom and Plantronics continue to operate, but are now under the one Poly umbrella. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our team at Poly to introduce themselves.
In Maryland and DC. GEM in our world stands for Government, Education, and Medical. So if you have any questions during this or after, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Matt. And my name's Dan Ferguson. I manage the Experience Centers here in the Americas. So I'm actually located in Washington, D.C. or Herndon, Virginia. So some of the personnel on the call I might have actually met. You may have visited the Experience Center. If you haven't, after this presentation, once everything goes back to normal, whatever the new normal is, please come out and see some of the devices that we're talking about today in a first-hand experience. So let's get started. So, there's been a lot already said on this call about the situation we now find ourselves into. So what we'll go through today is some of the devices that we believe will enhance both the education, the work from home, as well as the in-office experience with regards to both voice, video, and headsets. Okay, so if you've been on any video calls of late, which we more than likely all have, is we've just found out now that good isn't just enough. So we've got people who are joining our video conferences using maybe a smaller consumer-grade camera, a different headset that's not designed for UC, etc. If there's one thing that I've learned is that distractions are greater in the home environment. As I said, I work out of an experience center in Herndon, Virginia, and I'm used to the sounds that are in that environment. It's a fairly quiet, very acoustic, dampened sort of environment. Now that I'm in home, the distractions are so much more. So we've got homeschooling, we've got my wife downstairs talking on the phone, etc. So some of those distractions are taking me away from what I do on a daily basis. And when I think about the education environment, I think about the students. How are they coping with what they're doing on a daily basis? As an adult in the work environment, they say every time you are distracted, and they say that everyone is distracted almost 100% of the times throughout the day, it takes you 23 more minutes to get back to the concentration level that you had prior to being distracted. So I feel sorry for the young students, but also if you think about some of the consequences of that is that we've got students who aren't paying attention. Whilst they physically may be on camera, virtually they may be off in another world doing concurrent activities, whether it's, drawing, whether they're listening to their parents in the background, whatever it might be. And for adults, I certainly see it all the time on video. Everyone's got a second activity going on in the background, whether it's instant message, whether it's an email or a text, etc. So just understand that good enough isn't enough, and consumer-grade devices are no longer serving their purpose. So what we're going to go through today is two of the big ecosystems that Poly partners with. So the first one in the top right-hand corner is Zoom. Zoom has taken the world by storm, not only during the COVID situation, but prior to that, they were a real big player, or they were an emerging player within the UC market. And we certainly saw that as Poly. And with Poly's relationship with Zoom, you can see directly on the screen there is the relationship we have is from end to end. It's one of the most diverse portfolios of solutions in the market. So from the left-hand side, you'll see our personal devices, and personal devices are just that. It's for the individual only to use. So you'll see that we have speakerphones. We also have headsets, and that's that relationship, or that merger with Plantronics, where we now have headsets, as well as our desktop phones, which has come from that legacy Polycom environment. Over to the right-hand side, you'll see shared group devices, and this is where two or more personnel are moving into a huddle space, a boardroom, and it might even be a work from home or a classroom environment, but it's designed for more than two people. And you can see that we have conference phones, large cameras, as well as some of our collaboration bars that we will talk about today. And then below, you can see some of our video interop, which is our legacy products that enable us to get into that Zoom environment. But again, Zoom is one of the partners that we'll talk about today. Next slide, we're going to talk about Teams. Again, you're going to see replication from both sides. Our devices are very agnostic in the sense that we're able to use them in multiple ecosystems. So one of those relationships is with Microsoft. It's a 15-year relationship that we've had where research and development is conducted by both organisations, and we design the hardware, they design the software. So again, looking at the slide, we have personal devices as well as group devices, as well as on the second level of that slide, you're starting to see different services, management activities, as well as video interop. So from the two slides that I just showed you with Zoom and Teams, if there are two slides that you walk away with from today, is just understanding that we have from end to end, a headset all the way to our largest boardrooms, we have the ability to work both in those environments from a native perspective. And again, from a management or an IT perspective, if you have an issue with Zoom, whether it be the software or the hardware, you can call Zoom and you will get a response from them. Likewise with Poly from a hardware and software. So there's a lot of cross-pollination with regards to the services and management of our devices as well as the software. So again, this work from home environment, we're seeing it all the time. And currently I'm using one of our small devices here, which is a part of our virtual family. It's a speakerphone, and I've just got it off to the right-hand side there. But you can see that we also have an office lineup as well as a mobile lineup of headsets. I think Plantronics, or Poly as we're now called, has over 300 headsets, and they're all designed for different use cases. We also have them certified by both Zoom and Microsoft. So what does that mean? That means that you're able to do voice controls or call controls from your headset or the inline controller, so you can invoke the applications, volume up, volume down, mute, etc. Some of the other features that we always talk about with our headsets as well as our virtual speakerphones is some of the acoustic innovations. So think about distracting noises, etc. We're able to eradicate those, and I'll demonstrate that very, very shortly. But again, different headsets for different use cases and different wearing styles. Just understand that we have all the headsets covered with regards to both Zoom and Microsoft. So the first demonstration I'll take you through is using one of the virtual speakerphones. So think about this. We're on a video call now, and we know, like what I just spoke about, there's multiple people who are distracted. So they might be tapping away on their keyboard. And that should be a fairly distracting noise that will say to me as the organizer of this meeting, hey, can someone mute Dan Ferguson? I can see that he's tapping away on his keyboard, etc. But with our speakerphones, we have what's known as noise block, which is the ability to block out that non-human noise. So think of this, as I'm tapping away and I'm talking, you're able to hear me. But once I stop talking, you'll no longer be able to hear the tapping of that keyboard. But if I start to talk again, you'll be able to hear that. So that is the ability for our devices to identify non-human noises, and that could be opening a bag of chips, tapping away on a keyboard, rustling paper, etc. We're actually able to eradicate that noise. So that's using one of our virtual speakerphones. The next demonstration process of changing devices. So now I'm coming to you using my PC audio. There should be a significant difference between the Callisto and what the PC audio now is. I'm actually going to inject some background noise, and it's generic office noise. So you're going to hear telephones ringing. You're going to hear people in my cubicle next to me starting to talk, as well as fax machines, photocopiers, etc. So you should be able to hear that quite clearly now. I've raised my voice to yell over the top of that. Give me a thumbs up if you find that distracting. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate your input. So now what I'll do is I'll keep that audio running in the background, but I'm actually going to switch my audio responsibilities across to one of my headsets. So now using the Blackwire 5220, you should no longer be able to hear that distracting noise in the background. What I've gone from is the PC audio to the headset, and you can still see that the audio is still running on the actual phone in the background. So there's no smoke or mirrors. I haven't paused the music or anything like that. It is just me now using the headset, which is designed by Poly. So again, there's multiple noise cancellation capabilities within these headsets. Within the microphone, there's actually two microphones which are cancelling the background noise whilst enhancing my audio. But at the same time, when I put on a headset, there's two types of noise cancellation for the wearer. Active noise cancellation would be the eradication of the background noise, so I don't hear other students, other colleagues, other workers, whatever it might be, as well as the passive, which is the earmuffs, which is, essentially captioning or creating a buffer around my ears. So again, incredible headsets, all designed around when, what, how, where, and why, depending on what the user is actually wanting to do. Any questions on what I've quickly demonstrated with regards to the headset? No? Great. Let me switch back now to the Callisto, which is our speakerphone. We can bring that presentation back up as well. There we go. So think about the personal devices, headsets, speakerphones, etc., that ability to enhance that in-home education experience, work from home, but that also transfers back into the office, as we've already talked about. I can keep talking while we're just waiting for the actual PowerPoint presentation to come up. So what we're now going to move on to is some of our video endpoints. And the first one we're going to talk about is a bring your own device experience first, which is a USB studio. The second one we're going to talk about is an all-in-one device, again, with the ability for it to be both Teams as well as Zoom native. How are we going there, Rashan?
Can you guys see it?
Not yet. Here we go. Good job. Good job. There's nothing more than something like that on a live presentation. It happens to me all the time, but thank you. Well done. So we're going to move into the Poly Studio family. So the top left-hand side, that's what's known as the Poly USB Studio. That is a bring your own device experience. That would be you walking into the room with your laptop and joining to that device. The bottom two are the X series. So they are an all-in-one device with a camera, microphone, speaker, as well as the operating system built into that device. And we're going to go through each one of those over the next couple of slides. Here we go. So the Poly USB Studio video experience. There it is in its own footprint. It's a very small device which would sit above or below your PC, or below your monitor. You would walk into the room and you need to connect a USB as well as a HDMI cable. The HDMI cable goes to your monitor, which then replicates your image from your PC. When you connect the USB, it is taken over the audio and the video responsibilities from your PC. So the device is an all-in-one USB bar. Essentially has built-in speakers, microphones, camera, and your operating system comes from your PC. So think about this is whatever ecosystem, whatever soft client you have on your PC, you are able to use with this device. So I could walk in, use Zoom, Blue Jeans, Teams, whatever it might be. Again, if it's on your PC, it's able to be used. Some of the great features that this will give you is noise block technology. That was the demonstration I showed you with the tapping of the keyboards. It's able to eradicate that noise. Also, in some of these open environments, you're able to eradicate where different noises come from, in the sense that if I was on video today, I wouldn't want noise to be coming from my right-hand side where my door is. So I would set up an array which would give an arc of where noise is to come from and where noise is to be eradicated from. So anyone outside that arc would not be heard going through to the far end where you are now. It's a 4K camera, 5x digital zoom. So it's really designed for a small huddle space. But again, some of the other innovations we will show you is the camera tracking capabilities. I won't talk about it. I'll ask Lillian to actually demonstrate it very shortly, So again, we've already sort of spoken about the X series. There they are in their both footprints, and that's designed to give you an understanding of the size difference. So here it is, the Poly X Studio, and what you're seeing directly to your front is the X30. So that's designed for the smaller huddle space. Think about what this is. It's an Android operating system. So similar to your phone, we have an operating system that we're allowed or capable to load third-party applications. The two alliances, or the two partners that we are in lockstep and barrel with at the moment, is both Zoom and Teams. So we're able to load their applications. We also have our own application being PolyOS, which allows us to be open or agnostic to some of our other cloud providers. So the ability, think of it as a Swiss Army knife, you can join anything when in PolyOS mode. Again, the beauty of this device, and I'll show you shortly, easy to deploy. It takes 3 cables, you position it above or below the monitor, and again, depending on which platform you wish to use, you simply load that application. It's designed for the huddle space, but the beauty of this is that it's an all-in-one device. What you see is what you get. It doesn't require any microphones in the ceiling, any speakers, any additional hardware or anything like that to this actual device, because we have the camera, we have the microphones, we have the speakers, as well as the operating system. And that bottom image down the bottom just shows you some of the ins and outs for that actual device. Very, very simple. I think of this as, I could send this to anyone. I could ask them to plug in 3 cables and it's up and running as a video operating system or a VTC system straight away. How would they then control that device? Well, we have a number of ways that it can be done. It can be used with a touch monitor. It can also be used with a touch controller, which is a 8-inch controller that would sit in the center of your table, which enables you to go through and touch on the meetings and have in-meeting controls as such. So this is a build-out slide. So yeah, 1 tap, that's great. So here's what the customer said. They wanted a device that was easy to use. They wanted 4K quality. They wanted to be able to share content multiple ways. So think of this. I walk into this room and I want to share content. I can use AirPlay, being an Apple device. I can use Miracast. I can use the traditional HDMI cable, or I can use a PC application. So 4 different ways to be able to share. So the flexibility is, I don't care what device you have, you're able to share content. Everyone's got an idea, and we're able to share that idea through to the far end using video. Dual and single monitor options, as well as touchscreen options are another one with regards to how you're going to control this. Just 1 more tap, we'll build this slide out slightly. So we have the operating system. We've already spoken about that being the Android 9 operating system, the latest Android platform that we have. From there, 1 more tap on the mouse, we're able to load the ecosystems applications. Like I said, it's no different to your phone. Applications go onto the operating system and it moves into the native modes of those ecosystems. So for example, if I was to place a Teams application on one of these devices, the screens turn purple, we're in a native experience for Teams. You are locked into that experience. If it's Zoom, it looks like Zoom, performs like Zoom, you must adhere to Zoom's rules with sharing content, etc. But some of the other ecosystems that we're starting to partner with, if you want to give it 1 more tap there, thank you. Here they are. They're grey because we're not there yet. But these are some of the other ecosystems. LogMeIn, Amazon Chime, WebEx, BlueJeans, the Skype for Business, the Microsoft environment. So again, if there's anything I would take away from this is the versatility of this actual device, but also the future-proofing. You know, at the moment, your organisation might be 100% Teams, but tomorrow an organisation may change their direction and go with Zoom, or Amazon Chime is released. Again, it's just that flexibility. There's no requirement to get rid of the actual hardware. It is simply just a load of an application. And again, the flexibility of who we are working with in the future. There's some of the native experiences. So when it's in PolyOS mode, it looks like the further screen on the left-hand side. When it's in Zoom, as well as Teams, you can see the different colors and the different sort of native experience. Again, these are native experiences, so we are locked down into the governance of Microsoft, as well as Zoom, as to how they want that system to operate. Poly provides the hardware, which is designed with regards to all the specifications and the features that the operating system requires. We then just get the software and load that on there. Again, here's some of the great features that we always talk about with this device, and they're designed for different size rooms. So the X30 is the smaller one. As you can see, it's for 6 participants. So the limitation is the camera. The microphones are incredible. The camera is a 4X, so it's great out to about 15 feet. When we move into the X50, that's designed for a small to medium-sized room, as a larger huddle space out to about 10 people. But again, the pickup range of the microphones is incredible. We will demonstrate that very shortly. Different speakers for different models, etc. But again, it is the same workflow. I invite this system to a meeting, I walk in and I hit join, and the rest is forgotten about. Allow the technology to do what it's designed to do. So we've touched on the huddle spaces, and not everyone has huddle spaces. We often have the large classrooms, the large training rooms, the boardrooms, etc. If you want that same native experience, that same interface, that same look, touch and feel when I walk from a huddle space into another room, the G7500 is for you. This is a larger example of, or a larger footprint that allows greater deployments. So what I mean by that, it allows for integration. So if you have that room that needs a more powerful camera, like an eagle-eye camera, which has a 12-time zoom versus a 5-time zoom. If you need ceiling microphones, if you need speakers, if you want tabletop microphones, this would be the device that would be the next step up from the X series. So again, this is the G7500. What I'll quickly do now is show you some of these devices in real time. So allow me just to quickly switch across my camera. So here we go. And again, if you need to bring this screen up to uppermost, simply just tap on it. But what we're looking at there is the 3 different modes. So on the left-hand side, you're looking at Zoom. In the center, we have Teams. And then we have PolyOS. But again, as you can see on top of the screens, there's just different devices. So I have an X30 and an X50. So let's have a look at the actual Teams experience first. So you can see by the screen that I've simply invited this to a meeting. It's an X30 sitting on top of the screen, but I'm going to have this in a touch screen environment. So I can walk into the room. You can see that I've invited it to a Teams meeting. It has the time, and it also has the person that invited it. I walk in and I simply just hit join. That is all I need to do for this experience. The TC8, or sorry, the X30 on top, the light turns green, and it'll actually start to track me as I talk. But whilst I'm in this call, I have all these additional features, which is adding additional participants from my contacts list. I can turn the volume up, volume down, turn camera on and mute, etc. So that is the native Teams environment. Sticky hands. Then if we transition across over to the actual Teams environment, what I've done is I've set this up. Again, you're able to see the experience. It's an X30 sitting on top of the monitor. It is in Zoom mode. It looks like Zoom. You can see the meeting invite. So I have a Zoom meeting as well as an additional one during the periods of time, so we can see those. But this experience is going to be a little bit different in the sense that I'm actually going to use the touch controller. Again, there is the touch controller in a Zoom native experience. I walk into the room, I can hit start, and I'm into that call. No longer do I need to go through understanding the dial string or anything like that. So again, that is the one-touch dial capabilities of being able to walk in the room, join the call with ease. Is there any questions on that really, really quick demonstration? Again, hopefully it gives you the understanding that as a student, as a teacher, I walk into the room, I've invited this system via email. I walk in and I hit join. The rest is taken over by the technology in the room. So the camera is going to start to track me and the audio is going to be incredible. But what I'll do is I'll quickly throw over to my colleague Lillian, who's in Austin, Texas, and she'll give you a quick demonstration of some of those camera and audio innovations. Thanks, Lillian.
All right. Hello, everyone. As Dan said, my name is Lillian, and I'm the experience coordinator for the Austin site. So I'm coming to you live from my Austin home office, and I'm just going to really quickly show you how the camera tracking works on this. So basically, let's say that I was at a home office and I happen to have a whiteboard along my back wall. If I were to back up and kind of start pointing at it because, let's say, I'm a virtual educator and I need to show them something back here, the camera is automatically going to frame me as the active speaker. And I don't have any remotes or anything, so I don't need to touch anything. And, you know, if I was kind of somebody who likes to get up and walk and talk during my meetings, if I were to go over to my right, the camera is either going to gently pan to me or it'll do a hard cut depending on what it feels is the best production role for this particular situation. If I were to just go back to my seat again, eventually it'll reframe me back at my computer. And I think one of the really great things about this particular camera is that the sound is just as good from the back of the room, whether I was several feet to the back, whether I was over in this corner, or even if I'm sitting directly in front of the camera.
Fantastic. So some of the things I take away from that demonstration is exactly what Lillian said, is she hasn't touched any remote controls. She hasn't needed to control any cameras or anything like that. She's simply just moving around the room and allowing the camera to track her as she talks. So there's multiple different framing technologies or settings that we can have for the camera. So we can set it with all tracking turned off at 120 degrees, or we can allow it to frame the amount of participants in the room, or like Lillian just had it, was tracking the speaker. So the person that talks will have the attention or the camera flip between the people that are talking. So another great feature of our cameras. If you want to bring up the presentation again there, Rashaan? So what we're now going to move on is to voice collaboration. So again, we've gone from headsets to video, now to voice. And we see this as an integral part of our portfolio lineup, as well as our relationship with some of these ecosystems. So the latest product, and this was released last week, this is our conference phone. This is our Polytrio C60, the most powerful conference phone on the market. So you can be within 20 feet of this device. You will be heard, and you can definitely hear the far end participants. So the microphones and the speakers are absolutely incredible on this device. Again, it is just a device that you can put in various modes. So you can put it in a native Teams experience where it's going to be the Teams application. Some of the other things that comes with this device is our noise cancellation capabilities. So the noise block, the tapping of the keyboards, which has already been demonstrated. The other things that we can do to enhance the experience with this device, if needed, is add microphones, expansion microphones. So they are wired as well as wireless microphones that can be positioned throughout the room to give you greater coverage. And the other thing we always talk about with this device is the cable management. So if you've got students or the educators, the facilitators that often think that they're IT experts and need to disconnect cables, etc., the cables can go nowhere. They're actually locked into the actual device itself. So foolproof in that sense. Again, incredible audio pickup, incredibly easy to use, as well as deploy in your conferences with a huge pickup. So this will cover 400 square feet. In the Zoom environment, or with all our phones, again, we have HD voice, we have the acoustic fence technology and the polyacoustic. These are all built in, and a lot of these are patented by Poly themselves or Polycom. So again, trust in the phones, trust that it can eradicate that background noise, but also the acoustic clarity for accents, people that talk a little bit quieter, etc. Or you can pair this with a headset to, again, enhance that personal use case for these phones. Again, in that Zoom environment, we have Zoom phones. We have over 25 models that we can natively integrate into that Zoom environment. Again, you can see some of the things down the bottom, deep interoperability and integration. It works, it can be trusted, it's certified by Zoom, and Poly will also support from a hardware perspective. But again, one of the broadest portfolios of phones on the market. Now we're starting to get into the Teams environment. So we've looked at the Zoom phones, we're now going into the Teams environment. Again, you can see directly on the front of the screen there, it's the same application that you've seen on some of our conference phones, and it's a similar application that you would load onto your mobile device. So here is the CCX 400. It's a common area phone. You can see on the actual device, it has the Teams application. So 5-inch screen, this would be positioned in a common area. So in a school, it might be in the cafeteria area, it might be in the lobby. In a sort of hotel environment, again, it would be in the receptionist desk, etc. So common area phone, where it's really designed for someone to pick it up, make a phone call, and leave it at that. The next phone, this is CCX 500, and this is where we would say this is the common knowledge worker phone. You would see this on most desks throughout an organisation. Same sort of hardware or same sort of footprint, but what we've added here is the ability for natural language processing. So you'll see the Teams button up in the top right-hand corner of the phone. You would hold on to that. You would then be able to give voice commands for the phone in order to call people, etc. So call Lillian. It would then go through the dial-in process. The other thing that we've integrated here is additional USB ports for headsets, as well as Bluetooth. So we can start to bring in our Bluetooth headsets to be incorporated with this device. And the last one here is the managerial phone. So the CCX 600, we are moving out to a 7-inch screen, but it also has the same amount of USBs as the 500, but now we have Wi-Fi built into this actual device. So again, if you've seen anything, we've designed phones, we've designed headsets, and we've designed some of our video collaboration bars and conferencing systems set for different use cases as well as personas. So hopefully as a part of this presentation, you walk away with a great understanding that whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, Poly is the partner that you need to go to with regards to the hardware innovations, whether it be headsets all the way through to the largest room, we have you covered. And with that, I will throw it back over to Rashan for any sort of Q&As that we may have. Oh, sorry, over to Shannon, my apologies.
So I work for Learn, Design, Apply. We're a grant consulting organization, and I also work with Matt at Poly in terms of working with customers, potential customers, to identify funding sources. And I'll make this brief, but I do want to let you know about several different opportunities that are out there right now to kind of address the current COVID-19, pandemic that the world is facing, and how that applies to education. So the Higher Education CARES Act, the CARES Act was passed recently, and they essentially, this is an emergency relief fund. The amount of money that is available is astronomical. This is not a grant program per se, but this is truly funding that is allocated for each higher ed institution. We do have a list. I don't know if there's an email group. I can follow up with you later. We can send out some more information in terms of the details. But so essentially each, higher ed institution has been allocated X number of dollars through this CARES Act. And 50% of those funds have to be spent for essentially emergency assistance to students. The balance of that funding is available so that institutions can really ramp up their distance learning efforts. So I think this has taught everybody, that this is something that's not going to be a one-time problem. I think that higher ed is going to have to overcome. And so how can we best address this so that, we are prepared moving forward? And if there are expenses that maybe, they've had to take on immediately, this is kind of a way to help relieve some of those expenses. But a lot of the things that can be covered are looking at the equipment that you need to outfit essentially rooms, from both the professor's perspective, the student perspective, and then if the student is learning from home, what that looks like. So that's a great opportunity. Like I said, it's not a grant per se, so much as the funding is there. There is a September 30th deadline, and essentially what that deadline entails is institutions have until then to submit their 424 forms, which is a federal form, as well as certifications, et cetera. So that's one you certainly, is there and is available to be spent. There's no repayment on that one. The second opportunity that also came out of that CARES Act recently is that apparently this is the Department of Education. They have earmarked $13.2 billion just for K through 12 schools. Again, astronomical amounts of funding available, and we're not going to see this again. This is something that is happening now. The money is being allocated to assist organizations to get through this. And then also, what is this going to look like on the other side? And I think this is really important in K through 12 as well, because again, this is funding that provides the opportunity to perhaps outfit the schools so that they have smart classrooms. So I know in the district that I'm in, I have a high schooler. some of the teachers are actually going into the school, into their classroom, and teaching via video from their classroom, using their boards, et cetera. And then the students are tuning in and can participate in that lecture. So, what does that look like? Again, it needs to be more, I think, sophisticated. I think that a lot of organizations just haven't had the opportunity to pull that together. So, again, this is a great opportunity to not just get through the current month that we have until summer break, but look at, what is this going to look like down the road? Because this probably is not going to be the only time we're going to face this crisis as a nation. Third opportunity up on the slide is the FCC COVID-19 telehealth grant. And this one is basically it's first come, first serve. And this is for healthcare institutions primarily, also, education. But in terms of how are you directly impacting care for COVID-19 patients, again, not just now, but moving forward. This is first come, first serve, no match or repayment. And there's a very brief application process for this one. So this is one that you actually do have to apply for, but again, can apply for equipment and the infrastructure needed to facilitate basically telemedicine. The RUS DLT opportunities. So Rural Utility Services, RUS, and DLT is distance learning and telemedicine. This is a federal grant that comes out every year. This year, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they have offered a second round. So this second round is going to be due July 13th, which gives plenty of time for organizations to pull together an application. You can request up to $1 million, and that's for equipment only. So this grant doesn't include any provisions for staffing, overhead, et cetera. This is truly an opportunity to purchase equipment for your organization to either implement or enhance a current distance learning program. So for that one, there is a 15% match. And again, it's up to a $1 million request. So I know that's a lot of information thrown your way at one time, but I do, Matt and I have follow-up kind of summary documents if you are interested in receiving that has, more details, and also outlines for higher ed exactly how much each institution is receiving. And as far as K through 12, that's by state. So we can share that information as well.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon, and everybody for presenting. And so this is the time into the presentation now where we'll be taking any questions that you have. I think we'll start with any questions that were posed in the chat window, and then we'll go on and take live questions. So Manoja, were there any questions posted in the chat window?
There were no questions posted on the chat window, Rashawn.
Okay. So yeah, with that, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask away.
If you do have a question, please note that on the chat window to the left-hand side, and I will unmute each person one at a time, so there's not a lot of feedback. Dave, you are unmuted to ask your question.
So first of all, thank you for organizing this. This is fantastic information. It's very timely information. So the description of the webinar included Google Hangouts, but there was not any mention at all of Google Hangouts. So can somebody at least mention something about how what you've presented today fits or touches on Hangouts, Google Hangouts?
Absolutely, Dave. Can you go back in the presentation and go back to the Studio X30 and the X50?
Sure.
So one of the things you need to keep in mind, Dave, right now is in this great fun world of marketing and everything that's going on, there's a lot of different back ends, right? You heard the word Zoom, you heard the word Teams, you hear of Cisco WebEx, Polycom has one, Pexip has one, Google Hangouts has one. And, when people think of meetings, really all it is a back end. It's like telephony, right? If you're going to do a conference call, you need to go to a PBX, right? I don't know who else is on the call, but one of the nice things about our devices is if we can get to it, we can talk to it, unless we're blocked out, right? So if you're not using Polycom infrastructure and we're playing by Zoom's rules, right? If we call Zoom and someone says it doesn't work, well, it doesn't work in Zoom. So when you look at Google Hangouts, as long as we can get a SIP URI from Hangouts, we can call it. And I know this for a fact because I did some calls with, it was Montgomery College in Maryland. We were doing these meetings every other Thursday. And I have a Studio X30 and X50 and a 7500 in my office, and right now I'm on my 7500. We have the ability to do what's called calendaring, right? So the device, if it was Exchange, in your case it may be Google, it registers to an email account within either Exchange or Google, right? So when the invite comes across, it's constantly scanning that mailbox. And if it sees something in there that's a SIP URI or anything like that, takes it, it puts it on the codec, and there's a join button. So I set up a meeting, I had someone, I don't have a video Hangouts meeting myself, but someone sent it to me. I hit the join button and I joined. If you don't do it that way, then you're either going to have to use, like Dan mentioned, you're going to have to manually dial it through a touch control, or you're going to have to use a remote control. Because remember, the key to the X30 and the X50 is we're replacing the PC in the room. The PC is in the box, right? So if you go out and you say, hey, and I'm going to make a couple examples, and I know you asked about Google, right? So when you do Google, right, use your laptop and you go in, I think they had devices, but I'm not sure if they kept those devices around. But if it's Zoom or Microsoft and you say, hey, I want to do a Zoom meeting and you want to build a Zoom room, you have to go out and get a tablet, you have to get an Intel NUC, you have to get a speaker, a microphone, and you have to go out and buy a camera. Same thing with Zoom, right? But those devices only talk to Teams and Zoom. This device here, can you go back one more slide to the build slide? That's why when Dan showed, Dan showed this slide here. If you look at the if you look at the applications, right, you see different applications. We can natively talk to them, right? We can turn our codecs into a Teams room. It's basically you go in, there's a drop-down box, you check it, the thing reboots, and it shows in that mode. But we can leave it in Polycom mode, and we can talk to pretty much anyone that's out there, right? So, one of the things I wrote on my whiteboard, and this is just to remind me, right? It's like we're all stuck in the now. Everyone is living in the now, and I am too, right? I got kids at home, kids came back from college. Universities are more likely to be able to do online learning because they have. K-12 right now is I don't want to say a mess, but struggling because you never had to teach online. There's different things that happen there, right? So when we're looking at the devices that Polycom offers, I'm thinking about the now, right? Everyone's just trying to get through this. But I know for a fact, and some of the folks that I'm talking about, they're starting to say, what are we going to do in the fall? When we go back, if we go back, right? I know universities, no one's said anything yet. Same with K-12. They're kind of thinking about it. That's why I wrote this, is like, how are we preparing when we come back? Because we're already doing online learning. So when you go back to class, how are we going to incorporate this? So the devices that we've talked about today, not only, headsets and pucks help now, right? I'm at home, but some of these devices, depending on how you're teaching, some people are going in to a room and teaching, and they may want to use it. But when you go back in the fall and whatnot, these are the devices to think about. Say, hey, you know what? These are small. They're inexpensive. If I could put these in, now I can collaborate accordingly with anything that's out there. Because like Dan said, today you may be using Hangouts. I know, not to pick on poor Zoom, but there's all kinds of things that are coming out now where they're getting hit with security violations. So people that are using Zoom right now may cancel that Zoom contract and go with Teams or something else. These devices will talk to any one of them, so you don't have to replace your device, right? To answer your question, yes, it can talk to Google Hangouts. It just has to be able to get the number to dial in.
So maybe really quickly, up on the screen for me there is, hopefully you're now seeing the image of the PolyOS mode. So you can see the invites up on the screen. So from the left-hand side, there's a Teams meeting, there's a Zoom meeting, there's a Skype business meeting.
Sorry, can we take down the PowerPoint real quick so we can see it? There you go, Dan.
Yep, so there's my screen in PolyOS mode. So the invites that are up on the screen there, you're seeing from left to right is Teams, a Zoom meeting, and a Skype for business meeting. That could be the Google Hangouts, etc. So as I come into the room, there's the touch controller. I come in and I simply just hit join, and I'm actually dialing straight into that call without needing to do any other Real Connect service. Without needing to do any other integration whatsoever. So hopefully that answered your question with regards to the Google Hangouts from Matt, as well as a really quick demonstration.
It does very much. Just a quick follow-up, and I don't want to monopolize the time. Can somebody address that little icon in the upper left that says PEXIP?
So
it looks like an overlay.
Sure, yes. VSGI works with a company called PEXIP to provide VSGI services, and the underlying technology is PEXIP.
So it's another. So Dave, I can hit that one for you. It goes right back into what I said. All the back ends that are out there, right? Everybody is picking a back. It is a back end to connect to. So there's PEXIP, Polycom. For whatever reason, we did not put something in the cloud, but it's just what they chose to do it, and it's an overlay on there. That could very well say Zoom. It could say Team. It could be anything, right? And to address one more thing. And, I should have brought this up before. When thinking about what you're connecting to, I brought this up to the University of Pennsylvania. When we do a conference call, an audio conference call, when was the last time someone said to you, hey, Dave, let's do an audio conference call? You know what? Let's do a Verizon call. And you're going to say, what? Or, hey, Dave, let's do an AT&T conference call. Or, hey, let's do a Sprint conference call. So think about that for what we're doing in the Polycom world. I don't care what you use. I don't care if you use Zoom or whatever. You're saying, hey, we are going to set up a meeting, or we're going to receive a meeting from whatever's out there, and we're just going to join it. So no one has to say, hey, we're doing a Zoom, or we're doing a PEXIP, we're doing it. Because, faculty members, your job is to teach. I deal with doctors. Their job is to do medicine. I deal with judges. Their job is to do correct. They don't sit there and say, oh, we're doing X. They want to connect, they want to do it, and they want to be done with it. So kind of overall scoping to that. It was timely that you brought up the PEXIP. I like that. Good eyes. Good eyes.
Thank you.
But it makes sense, right? I mean, think of it in that.
Absolutely.
Think of our products in that way. We don't care what your back end is. We just want to get you in and join, just like we're doing right now. They're using PEXIP. I'm joining with my Group 7500 codec. I had a join button. I came in. My touch control's on my desk, which my cable's not. Here's my touch control, my 7500. I'm in the call. There's controls on it. I just came in and hit join. I didn't do anything. That was it.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Sure. Yep.
And this is Rashawn with VSGI and MEEC specialist once again, just to go over top of what Matt was saying. Yeah, so VSGI, this is our VSGI meeting services, and it is powered through PEXIP, like Manoja was saying. This is a solution that we actually have on the MEEC contract. And it's under Videxio as of right now, but we're working on getting that changed. But this is actually a solution that we currently offer to all our MEEC members. This is just how we present, and we were able to do the live webinar this way. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the experience so far. So as well, were there any other?
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tamara did have a comment. I'm going to unmute Tamara right now.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure MEEC members were aware that we have contracts, of course, with Microsoft and with Google. That was my comment. Period. Done.
The next question comes from David Flax. David, you are unmuted.
It's just so while we're waiting for David, I apologize. I didn't step on your toes. I just wanted to also mention real quick that PEXIP is the only Google native platform. So just to let you guys know that. Go ahead, David. My apologies.
No, that's okay. So with the X30 and X50, I know it can do Zoom mode. I know it can do Teams mode and PolyOS mode and H.323. Can I switch between them on the fly, or do I need to reboot and reset?
Right now, you need to reboot and reset. So if you're in Teams mode, it's in Teams mode. You're doing Teams, and then if someone says, "Oh, hey," and the way it's it's done on the administrative side, and the reason for that, and that kind of brings back the join button, right? The end user should never have to know. Why should they have to go into a room and say, "Oh, I have to do a Zoom meeting. Why I have to do this?" So you look at the flexibility, Dave. We spoke, but it's what needs to be there, right? What are you using? If you want to set it up in that mode, by all means, set it up in that mode. If you want to be generic and talk to everybody, you would set it up in that mode. But, there was discussion at one point in time to have, and I know someone else does this, and I'm going to be kind, and I'm not going to bring up the manufacturer that does this. They want to talk about having a touch screen with different icons of the different providers that are out there. Zoom button, this, that, and the other. To do that, then to kind of do some things. But in my mind, that's a level of complexity because most people don't think that far ahead. They don't know they're having a Zoom meeting. They don't. You're not going to walk in and say, oh, I'm doing a Teams meeting. Heck, I think most of the people on here are technology specialists within your organization. Half the time they can't even turn on their laptop. So we want to keep it as simple and easy as possible for people to join a meeting.
Awesome. And we are right at the minute, I think. And there's one last question. Rashawn, I'm going to direct this at you. The last question is, does VSGI help with selecting products that are the right fit for each person's environment?
Absolutely. So we're a full service audiovisual provider, multiple partners, Poly, definitely one of our top partners. We will work with the customer to determine the best solution that fits their environment. We have an engineering team, again, the sales team, myself, Manoja, and multiple others at VSGI that can definitely work with you guys to determine the best fit for your distance learning needs, and as well your actual normal business function needs. Okay, so that's the last question?
That is the last question.
Fantastic, guys. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Just to put this back up there again, these are everyone who presented this afternoon, myself, Manoja, Dan, Matt. Feel free to contact us directly if you have any questions about what was presented today or any additional things that we can help you out with. We are absolutely here to help. And thank you again so much for joining. We look forward to hearing from you guys and discussing projects in the future.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good afternoon, okay?